Well, what the heck? I figured I might as well start a couple minutes early and get everybody warmed up. It's taken some time. We've digested a lot of food. We're still continuing to because Turkey Day was yesterday. And I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. Um, I appreciate everybody for coming on in tonight. By the way, I do. We have got Trey in the house tonight. Trey Hudson, author and researcher. Okay, so he's going to be talking about what happened in the Meadow and what the Meadow Project is all about. Apparently, there's a documentary already out, and I did share, the trailer on Facebook for you all to check out. But he'll be in tonight to talk about the strange and amazing things that have happened out there. And I can't wait to hear about it because, here in the Pacific Northwest, where I live in Washington State, we have some similar areas where unexpected things happen, things that we can't explain, things that we capture on film, and things that we see that we can't capture on film. But I'm really hoping that he's got the nitty gritty and maybe he can give us some insight into what may be happening near you in your meadows and in your areas around your home and in the mountains and such. Anyway, I'm going to welcome everybody on in. Thanks for being here. Like I said, I appreciate it. It's Friday. Thank God it's Friday. We got 2 more days off, so we're going to enjoy that. Who do we have up first? Well, we got Kitty Cat Whack, of course, in the gold medal position. We got Race Fan. We got Mel in the house. My favorite people's always coming in. And Paulie, thank you very much for showing up as well. We got Robert. Thank you for coming on in. And we got Kitty Cat Whack, which I've already said. We got Jessica. We got Cosmic Joe. We got Flat Six. We got J Truth Seeker. Oh my gosh, all these people. I love you all. We got Tammy. Of course, my girl's in the house watching the show. She can't go without watching the show and seeing her man up here. So, give her a thanks. We got Dahlia. Welcome. Thanks for coming on in. And we got many more people dropping on in right now. Let's get through a little bit of business really quick here. I'm still looking to replace Tim James as a co-host. I'm still looking for another co-host out there. So if you're interested and you've been watching the show for a long time, let me know on Facebook. This show was originally made for a co-host, and I would like to continue that because I like that back and forth banter. I don't want it to just be me and a guest. I want more minds on this than just my own and the guests. So I would appreciate, finding somebody else to fill in the seat next to me for the show. Anyway, got that going on. And then also spacedoutradio.com, by the way. Dave Sky has put together some great swag, some new swag. And I really appreciate all the work he's done in there. So please go check it out. If you see anything you like, be sure to purchase. And we would love to see pictures of you in Spaced Out Radio gear. You can share those on spacedoutradio.com as well. Thank you very much for showing on up and doing that. Give us a like and a subscribe, please. Thank you. And without further ado, we're going to go ahead and hit the intro, and then we'll get right into it with Trey Hudson.
Welcome to the dimension of the unknown, where the imagination reigns supreme, crafting worlds and realities that defy the limitations of our mortal coil. Beyond the veil of reality, there exists a realm that defies the boundaries of human perception. Certain places beckon with an otherworldly allure, stirring the senses and whispering secrets of a dimension that lies just beyond the threshold of our mundane existence. The air is alive with an electric anticipation, as if the next step might unravel the very fabric of reality, plunging us into an abyss from which there is no return. This realm is a boundless expanse, as infinite as the cosmos and as timeless as the ages. It inhabits the twilight zones of existence, where the glow of knowledge and the shadows of ignorance entwine like lovers in a cosmic dance. Here, the rational and the mystical converge, suspended between the depths of human terror and the pinnacle of our understanding. Welcome to Element 115.
And without further ado, let's welcome Trey Hudson.
Howdy, gang. How's it going?
Oh, it's going fantastic, man. I'm happy to have you here and talk about this amazing location that you have, just so I can learn more and maybe implement some techniques that I haven't used in my own spots.
Yeah, I'm just thanks for having me. I'm just tickled pink to be here, and like I've always said, this isn't my story. This is the world's story, and it deserves to be told. So I'm happy to share it anytime that I can.
That's perfect. That's perfect. I see that you worked for the DoD at one time.
Yeah, I worked for the DoD for 34 years. Yeah.
Wow. In what capacity?
Oh gosh. I started off, it's one of those things that I was a Army intelligence officer in the reserves. I was with two counterintelligence units, and I got injured, and my military career in the reserves was cut really, really short. So I jumped over into Department of the Army, and originally I did physical security, which is protecting things, and kind of culminated my physical security part of my career protecting chemical weapons. So I oversaw the protection of about 7% of the U.S. military's chemical weapons stockpile. And, I'd always used to joke with people is, when you have a bad day, maybe you break a plate. When I have a bad day, 60,000 people die. So I try not to have too many bad days.
There you go.
So, I did that for a long time. So I did the WMD security, and then I became pretty well versed, and I travel all throughout the country doing security troubleshooting at other stockpiles. The one closest to you was actually in Umatilla, was the one facility there. And I've been to Umatilla many, many times, just there near Pasco. So I did that for a while, and then I jumped back into my intelligence roots, and I did what was called information security. And I was the guy who made sure that the secret things remained a secret. So I
very good,
oversaw protection of classified material, information programs, things like that. And then I retired as chief of intelligence and security management out of one of the Department of Defense's organic industrial bases that does weapon systems and stuff like that. So that's just kind of, I piddled around in Afghanistan for a while, and as an anti-terrorism guy. So just kind of, I'm an ordinary guy. I just had some extraordinary opportunities.
Well, it really brings it home for me. And I'll tell you why. And that's because my son at 19 years old is currently in boot camp right now.
Oh, very good.
And securities is where he wants to be. So thank you very much for being on, and thank you very much for your service, sir. I really do appreciate that.
Well, you're quite welcome.
And just seeing my son come up through that, and then he's got a bunch of college courses he's got to take afterwards.
Right.
1 to 2 years, I guess, from what I gather, but I have no idea until he graduates. But yes, it's nice to have people come on the show that have that knowledge and have been through that same sort of stuff. So
It was a cool career. I mean, it was of course, being government, I dealt with a lot of the bureaucratic BS, so it just drove me crazy, especially when I became a supervisory security specialist. But as far as the actual nut and bolts work, I loved it. I really liked it. Did counterintelligence even, as a civilian, worked with
mhm.
some of the counterintelligence agents and stuff on programs, and I just had a really good time. But now I tell people that was my job, my job. Looking at weird crap, that's my vocation. That's really what I love to do. So,
Well,
I'm living the dream.
yeah, I mean, you're a trained observer, is what you are.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you've gone through 30 years of being a trained observer, really honing your skill, right?
yeah,
And
and I'm
so when you come across something that is different and bizarre and not normal, you're going to take heed. You're going to be able to take notes. You're going to be able to explain in great detail what you're seeing, what you're experiencing, and all the things right down the line. So,
yeah, that's absolutely right. That's kind of the way we approach things. And the group that I run is called the Anomalous Studies and Observation Group, or ASOG. And we look at it in a couple of ways. What I didn't tell you is when I was in university, before I was branched as a military intelligence officer,
mhm.
I have a degree in humanistic and transpersonal psychology with a minor in anthropology.
Wow.
And I studied under like the great parapsychologist Dr. William Roll was one of the professors at my university, University of West Georgia. And so they study in humanistic and transpersonal psychology. They really look at the human experience, what it is to be human, and then evolve spiritually, intellectually, and collectively, as humans and as an individual human. So what we do in ASOG is we look at the things from two different perspectives. One is the empirical perspective. Okay, I have my Geiger counter out there with me. I have my thermal. I have my psionics night vision. I have my EMF meter and all of the stuff that we carry around in our backpacks. But I also have one of the most important pieces of detection equipment, and that's this: being a human. And
Mhm.
so we look at the empirical, but we also look at the experiential,
Right.
because quite frankly, if these amazing things are going on and they're not experienced by a human being, then what's the point? Why bother?
Exactly. Exactly. So when you were in the service,
Yeah.
did you have any of these phenomenon happen to you out there?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I get asked that a lot. I am the it's kind of funny. I'm going to kind of poke fun at the whole environment that's going on right now. I am the only former government guy that has retired out of an intelligence community position that has absolutely nothing to do with UAPs, UFOs, high strangeness, or any of that. So no, nothing. Very, very boring, nuts and bolts, kind of stuff.
Well, what the heck got you interested in it then? What was
I
it?
well, I was I'm going to give my age away here. I'll be 61 next month. Uh so I was a child of the 70s, and there were wonderful TV shows, back on in the 70s, like In Search of with Leonard Nimoy.
Absolutely.
Project UFO, and all of these these wonderful shows like Kolchak the Night Stalker that had like a paranormal kind of flavor to them. And so I was like this little weird maladaptive sponge, soaking all this stuff in. And so when we would go on field trips, the other boys would have like football magazines and stuff, and I'm a little geek in the back reading a UFO magazine. That was me. So, I've always had a kind of a natural interest in this, and I just think it's really cool that there is something else, besides what we see, or this empirical Euclidean world we see around us, that there's something greater, you know, and not only am I excited about that, that gives me, hope, from a transpersonal perspective, that just gives me hope and a confidence in what's to come, once we shed this earthly coil. So
There you
that's
go.
kind of where it came from.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that too. I grew up watching the same sort of, in the Star Trek and,
Oh yeah.
everything I could soak up about the future and about the possibilities that we only hope to experience, right, with Bigfoot and
Right.
that sort of thing. So,
Well, and right over my shoulder, Sasquatch: The Legend of Bigfoot, which was a famous kind of fake documentary back, I think, in
mhm,
1977. I saw that on the big screen, and I'm like, what kid, could not isn't going to be inspired by that,
right.
but great stuff. It's great stuff.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of people out there that want to believe, but they don't have the experience to believe. You know what I mean? They don't,
Yeah,
and
you
they're
know,
looking for it. They're looking for it.
well, I think we as human beings, I think we have it's in our DNA that we kind of have this spark, and I can go down the whole religious and spiritual track, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to say we all have this spark that we understand there's something other than us, something greater than ourselves. And you can
Mhm.
call that whatever, whatever label you want to put on that. And I think people have a natural yearning. And I think people are uh, maybe let down when they don't understand what that other is. And
Hmm.
those of us that actually especially in the 21st century, we put this down,
Right.
get off our heinies, we put on our boots and we go out and make it happen.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people really ought to be doing, is actually getting out and touching grass and experiencing the world around them. But the cool thing about the meadow uh is it just basically came out of research. I started looking at concentrations of places that had UF or Bigfoot sightings.
Mhm.
And we couldn't find, we didn't run into any Bigfoot in this region. But then I started noticing that it was also overlaid with UFOs and folklore, and it was a geo concentration of high strangeness. And the cool thing is, if people do their research and get out in the field, they might find one of these places 5 or 6 miles from where they're sitting right now. And all it
Yeah.
takes is someone to take the effort to go out there and find it.
Yeah. I'm wondering this location, this meadow that you're talking
Mhm.
about, there must have been some folklore about
Yeah,
it
yeah,
or some
absolutely.
people that you met said, "Hey, this seems to be a really strange area." What was it that drew you there?
Well, it was, I kind of, studying under Dr. Roll, I kind of started off as a paranormal guy.
Mhm.
And so I was at this was kind of a funny thing. It's mentioned in my first book is I was at a Bigfoot convention as a paranormal guy. So I was kind of getting the stink eye by a lot of people. This was back in like 2013. So, people weren't as open-minded as they are now in the Bigfoot community. But the one guy actually came over to me and said, "I want to know what you know." And that was Bob Wilson, Grumpy from Bigfoot is Real. Uh,
Okay.
and so Bob and I became really good friends, and we went out to a location with one of his research partners, thinking that some of the folklore that we had heard about ghosts and stuff was maybe cryptid, and we didn't find any cryptids. But Bob had a really cool UFO sighting back at base camp. So we're like, yeah, forget about that cryptid business. Let's go back to base camp. That's where stuff seems to be going, not 20 miles down on this mountain where we were looking. And it just so happens near the base camp was a big open field of about 8 acres. And it was really cool because it was big enough to where we could put teams out at night with thermal and night vision. They could see anything moving across. It was a big grassy area, so it was a natural track trap.
Yeah.
It had a ridge to the south that we could put teams in looking down or forcing things down into the meadow to be captured on film. And it had a big expanse of sky that we could watch for UFOs. So it just so happens it was logistically was a really good place for research.
Mhm.
And it was just one of those things. It took off, and it completely exceeded any expectation. I mean, the first time we went out there and really looked at it and researched it back in 2016 in July, the stuff that happened on that first trip is enough high strangeness to last a lot of people for their whole lifetime.
Wow.
And it just got stranger from there on. And the cool thing is the phenomena is evolving. And we believe that the phenomena, based on some of the experiments we've done, is a non-human intelligence.
Mhm.
And it continues to let us know that it's still there. and
Mhm.
still interacting with us in very unique and different ways than it did when we first started researching.
So it seems to be a linear transition.
Yeah, it's evolving.
It's a building up of something.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, have you done any research of the area from, like, say, the past to
Yeah.
see if there was anything that went on there, like mining or anything like that?
Yeah, the area, the region that this is in is known for mining. It's an area
Mhm.
that has mining. In this region, you'll find tunnels and hyd my mind is completely blank. The detritus from hydraulic mining and things like that. Uh, so mining is going on there. There's a lot of caves in this area. A lot of
Mhm.
underground things. A lot of folklore going all the way back to Native Americans, and then you start moving it forward. There's a lot of folklore of wild men, being
Yeah.
harassing farms and being chased by the sheriff's posse, and the wild man and a hairy woman, seen at the edge of farmers, fields and stuff like that. We've all seen those old, news stories from the 20s and 30s. And then you move into the 20th and 21st century. You go to like a BFRO and start looking
Yeah.
at some of their databases, and you see,
Mhm.
in this area, there's like a lot of stuff going on. Then you turn the page and go over to like a MUFON and National UFO Reporting Center, start looking at some of their databases, and there's still a lot of stuff going on. And then you start looking at the folklore about strange creatures, folklorically, and they once again are present in this area. So it's just really was a good spot to to roll our sleeves up and get to work, as far as research goes.
That's pretty amazing to have all that stuff going on in one
Yeah.
location. I'm wondering if there is possibly a lot of quartz in the area, if you've got flowing
Oh yeah.
water.
Oh yeah. 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 Yeah.
These
There's
sor
a
these
it,
sorts of things I wonder about because, in a lot of those areas where you have the flowing water, where you have the quartz veins, where you have gold veins, where you have different minerals, there seems to be a coalition of different phenomenon that happen in that area. And yes, you're talking about possible portholes and
mm,
everything
yeah.
that could possibly be manifesting there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there we have found on top of the ground, balls of quartz about the size of a softball. Just to the north of the meadow, I would categorize it as a very large creek or small river. A
Mhm.
very big body of water. Is continuously flowing. It's not a dry, wet weather tributary by any stretch. It's a big creek. So yeah, all the elements that you always hear about are right here in this one place. And
Mhm.
one of the cool things is you can't really get to it very easily. You have to literally pack all of your gear in there. So there's not it's not like you're gonna go in there and there's gonna be people pulled down in their 1987 Buick drinking beer and smoking burning a doob, because you can't get down in there. You actually have to make an effort to get here.
Mhm.
And if you're going to do it with any kind of equipment, you have to make a little bit more of a concerted effort.
Well, that's good. That keeps the riffraff out,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, except for us,
Except for you guys, right?
right?
And I imagine, being down in that location, you are having active contact. It
Yeah,
that is, um, not communicating with you, but realizes that you are there.
yeah, yeah. It's we've had everything from a team member have missing time, and we have a hypnotherapist on the ASOG staff, psychotherapist and hypnotherapist. That's what he does for a living. And he was not able to get through this missing time this individual had. The block was so strong that he could not get through it. That individual on that same trip was witnessed by two individuals, both with degrees from the Georgia Institute of Technology, one with a master's degree. The other guy was a special operations veteran, very solid guys, witnessed another team member, the missing time guy, turn into a ball of energy
Mhm.
and move about 100 meters. And then when they brought their thermals back up, it was back to being a dude, back to being a guy. And when they questioned him about that, they said, geez, you turn into a ball of energy. Are you okay? And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I just walked over here. And they're like, no, you turn into a ball of light. You moved, 100 meters, like 6 or 7 seconds. And he goes, no, I didn't. I just walked over here. So we argued about that for a long time. For about 2 years, we would we'd sit there at base camp after, coming out in the field, drink bourbon and argue about this. And, which made for some lively discussion. But what we finally came up with, we kind of came to a consensus, is two realities were existing at the same time. Now you'll see that on micro scales, in quantum science, quantum mechanics and stuff. You'll see, like light is a particle and it's a wave, both at the same time. The cat is both alive and dead at the same time. And the observer effect will change, the state of quantum matter.
Right.
But we're seeing this on a macro scale. And, we were thinking perhaps this is a one-off, this thing only happened this one time. But we found out, later when we went back, in 2017, back in February, is it got even stranger. We actually had teams, out in the meadow. We had a team up on top of the ridge. And one of the team members was looking down into the meadow with his thermal, and he saw what he described as a telecom box, like you see on the side of the road with fiber optics and phone lines and, the big boxes. And he was thinking, why is that box down there? And all the times we've been down there, I've never noticed that. We've been all over that field. That's very strange. And he handed the thermal back to me. And back then we were using FLIR Scout TKs, the little handhelds.
Oh, yeah.
So he handed it back over his shoulder to me. And we were up on this real steep ridge. And I looked and I said, no, man, those are deer. I mean, I can see their heads and their legs. And I gave it back to him and he goes, well, that's weird because it looked like a box to me. And of course, we want to rationalize things. We're human beings. We're like, okay, well, for some reason I confused a box shape with a deer shape. Oh, crazy me. But then it got weirder because the third individual that was with us on that team looked through his thermal, and he caught this on video, is he caught one man-sized heat signature. I say man-sized, about 1.75 meters tall, maybe half a meter wide heat signature. But where it gets weird is the heat signature is tall, and then it shrinks down to short to about 1 meter. Tall, short, tall, and then it splits into two distinct heat signatures and winks out. And it's like, well, that's very strange. What's going on here? And at that time, we hear over our radio, our comms, that our teams down in the meadow are seeing on their thermal boxes forming. Now, we hadn't told them about this other box because we had rationalized that away as a misidentification. And they're now seeing boxes form. So we beat feet down into the meadow and link up with the team just as one of these boxes, would form here, then dissipate, form here, dissipate, have formed in front of them and it had dissipated. And just as we got there, it had faded away. And we were able to vector a team over to where this box was. As the team got to the threshold of where this box or cube was that was only visible on thermal, when they crossed that threshold, their heat signatures completely disappeared. Now people can see this in the film. The heat signature completely disappears, gone, like they don't exist. Yeah. And they described it when they crossed that threshold, they went into an area that they said was cold, was very dark, no sound, and there were no brambles or briars. There were no encumbrances going in there. They stayed about 90 seconds. They turned around and came back out. But when they were coming out, they started having to fight their way through branches and stuff that didn't exist when they went in. Yet they took the same route in as they did out. Two realities existing at the same time at the same place. And the sad thing is, 4 people went into that box. Only 2 are still alive.
What happened to the other 2?
Well, one had his cancer come back with a vengeance.
Oh.
The other one had a pulmonary edema,
Okay.
and basically it's gory. I don't want to go into it,
Yeah.
but he bled out. It was really horrible. And the third person that went in there is suffering from plaque psoriasis and autoimmune stuff. That would be me. And the fourth person, as of yet, has not had any other kind of health issues. But
Hmm.
It's called correlation causality. I can't say that it is, but it is interesting. You look at the studies like Dr. Gary Nolan and some other people about health effects and high strangeness. It kind of makes you wonder, what exactly is going on here.
I kind of have a theory behind that too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
My theory is that you may live your whole entire life in another reality. The reality that you live in, you're going to live until you die of old age. To create your, to go through your mission or whatever that is. And in other realities, you may die early.
Right.
But yeah, with an area like that where you have the splintering of reality, and you may have multiple, more than just two, in that one location that are crossing over at the same time. I mean, this is the kind of thing we need to figure out how to track and understand and visualize and record, so that we can see these things,
Mm-hmm.
in everyday life, because I'm sure that they aren't just like in the meadow, but we may come across them when we least expect it and don't even see it or know it.
Yeah, that's one of my goals. Is I hope
Mhm.
that researchers in this arena, that we can drop some of the parochial attitude that we have and start really talking to each other, because I am a firm believer that there are signatures and indicators
Mhm.
that correspond to high strangeness. One of them is radiation spikes.
Okay.
Folks I've talked to in the world, is they see small radiation spikes in areas and at times preceding incidences of high strangeness. And I'm not talking crazy spikes. I'm talking like a background radiation of 0.6 or 0.06 microsieverts per hour, spiking up to about 0.3 microsieverts per hour. So that's 5 times as much radiation. Not dangerous, but they're indicators. And other people have had indicators of electromagnetic fluctuation, geomagnetic fluctuation. And I think if we can kind of drop some of the walls and really start talking, especially these areas of really well-known high strangeness, we can start putting some of the puzzle pieces together. And we might not figure out what exactly is going on, but we can come up with a template or a model and a hypothesis that can give us maybe an indication of when these things are going to happen next. And then we can bring in the empirical stuff, the Geiger counter, the thermals and all the equipment that we can try to start capturing more data. And then we can get into the more esoteric side of things.
Yeah.
What we've started doing is using, like we were talking about before the show, we use the God helmet to facilitate communication. We use some tools from the paranormal world. And we've had, what I believe is effective communications with whatever this non-human intelligence is. So, maybe we can start figuring out what's going on with a little sharing of information.
So it seems too that we get bleed through from a reality that we don't quite understand.
Yeah.
And there's creatures and entities that live in those other realities that may be able to bleed temporarily into our own. If that's Bigfoot, if that's Dog Man, or those sorts of things that are able to jump from one reality and back and forth into another. And you've seen that as well.
Oh, yeah.
In that location.
Oh, absolutely. And the weird thing is there seems to be certain correlations. You mentioned Dogman. Okay. And Dogman is one of those things that's really easy to say, Dogman, what a bunch of, hooey. But it's really weird that in these areas of high strangeness, there seems to be some sort of correlation or marker that involves bipedal canines. And that's weird. That's totally weird. You go to Skinwalker Ranch and you read some of the, especially the latest book, Skinwalkers of the Pentagon. one of the researchers of Bigelow's NIDS, National Institute for Discovery Science, when he went back to his suburban Virginia home, and I talk about this in my second book, is his family started seeing upright canines in their backyard in suburban Virginia. Marley Woods, is you read the recounts of Marley Woods and the people in the area surrounding that location, they describe seeing upright bipedal canines. 40 meters from my back door of where I live, a few years ago, I encountered a 6-inch wide, 6-inch diameter canine tracks that had a track line that began in a specific area, traveled a distance, and then stopped. And the track line appeared to be bipedal. So there's something about the canine element to this. So yeah, it's interesting you brought up Dogman, because it figures into this somehow.
Yeah, I'm wondering if people, once they go into a location like that and they have this sort of phenomenon happen, whether they carry something unknowingly back with them wherever they're going.
Yeah.
You know, that energy, whatever it is now with them, and they carry it back home. And that entity is able to use that door that you've already opened to step through into, into that space.
I think that's right. I'll give you like an anecdote, kind of an example of that is, if we're in a crowd of people and somebody's kind of standing, out there away from us, and one of our crowd goes up and says, "Hey, I'm TREY Hudson. How you doing? Nice to meet you." We chit chat for a while, and I go back to the crowd. Now that other person is going to feel more comfortable approaching our group and interacting with it. And I think once you put yourself out there, and I'm talking about really put yourself out there, and you willfully enter into a dialogue, be it knowingly or unknowingly, with whatever it is, I think it's liable to come by and say howdy every once in a while, just to let you know it's still there.
Yeah. Well, I'm a researcher like you, not quite maybe as adept. I've only been doing this for about 12 years, but I definitely think that stuff does follow you from time to time. So I don't know that it hangs out forever, but I do think, from time to time, it does follow you home. I'm wondering, there was a story that was relayed in the preview that I saw about a golem type creature.
Oh, yeah, that's a weird one. That's a weird one.
And that really kind of sparked my interest as well. Something that is slinky, on the ground. That would.
Yeah, it's. I'm looking at my notes right here to find out the date of that. I can't find it right now. We actually had a couple of new members come in. I talked about the psychoanalyst. He and his wife were very new members that came and were entering the team, and it was their first time out at the Meadow. Well, she and one of my senior researchers, Daryl Neese, and her husband, all three of them had gone up to top of the ridge that I had referred to before, just to the south of the Meadow. And her name is Christy. So, and if Christy's listening, hi, Christy. And they're sitting there, and she says that she started getting the feeling like something was watching them, something slinking along the ground. And she's like, I'm just not comfortable with this. And she said she sat there and just, kind of sucked it up and dealt with it for a while. And then finally she had to say something. And she, told Daryl, she goes, "Look, I'm really not comfortable here. I feel like something is watching us. Something is slinking around, peering at us. Can we go back with the other group?" And Daryl said, "Of course, our goal is not to make people uncomfortable. Absolutely, we can go back." So they worked their way back down, along the ridge. And myself and another researcher, Greg, we're sitting in the field and we're looking up at the top of the ridge, and we can see them move along the trail about halfway from the top of the ridge. And right below them is an orb that's tracking them just out of their sight. that they can't quite see, but we can see it. So they get back down and they tell us this story, and we're like, okay, that's a very interesting story. Something might have been watching you because we saw the orb. And this is one of the times when I talked about the Meadow throws you these curveballs that you're not expecting. And this curveball was precognition. The next night, that was a Friday night. The next night, we go back out, and we had a whole big, huge cadre of research. We had 12 people. So we had 6 teams surrounding the meadow, completely just saturating it. And so, we sat out there, all night, and we came back and we were doing our after action review, our AAR. And one of my thermal operators said, hey, yeah, nothing much went on, but I saw a big hog or bear, out there in the meadow. I said, a hog or a bear? What are you talking about? I said, yeah. He goes, through my thermal, I saw something crawling along the meadow, that looked like a hog, the size of a hog or a bear. And I said, and his name was Lee too. And I said, Lee, it was surrounded by 12 people. What animal in its right mind is going to go into an open area surrounded by humans? It had to smell somebody because we were completely encircled it. I said, do you remember what Christy was talking about last night? And he goes, what do you mean? I said, remember the thing she said was slinking along? What did you just say you saw? A thing slinking along? I said, she predicted it last night. It was precognition. And he's like, holy cow. He goes, I rationalized it. I was thinking it was a bear or a big hog. And I said, you didn't record it, did you? And he goes, no, I wasn't even thinking about it. So fast forward to last November, a year ago, when I was out there with the team on the film, and you'll see this in the film, is I recorded a thing slinking along, just kind of cruising along. And it was in the same area where we had seen the box or portal back in 2017. So here's where it really gets interesting. Is the Seth Feinstein, one of the photo analysts from MUFON, said, hey, I'd like to see that. I would like to look at look at that footage. So he used a technique called a quantum image analysis, which pulls data out of that, that still photograph or that movie or that film.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was watching the Slinker video. That's what we call it now. And he called me. He goes, hey, why am I seeing like it looks like a box or something to the right of this thing that's slinking around? I said, Seth, that's where the cube was in 2017. So it looks like on a quantum state, the cube is still there and things are crawling in and out of it. And he didn't know anything about where the cube was in relationship to, this video. So it's really weird that it looks like that these things, still exist in a quantum state just out of our awareness. And maybe the cube or the portal has never gone away. Maybe it's still there, even to this day.
But they tend to move around. They're not stationary or stagnant.
Yeah.
Right.
These were moving around, but there was, the one that we actually interacted with. This was in the area where I captured on my thermal that slinking creature.
Gotcha. The thing that comes to mind when we're talking about this is video games and how do computers render certain things before they're realized or seen by the player. And they might be similar, like it's a cube until it's not, until it is seen.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So are we in some sort of a projection, maybe, and those things that eventually get seen are maybe at times not visible to our eye or to our equipment, but show up as a box until our mind realizes what they are, or reality figures out what that thing is.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if this isn't signs of a reality that isn't necessarily as real as we think it is, I should say.
Yeah, I think so. And, one thing I've learned over the years of study is human beings are multidimensional creatures. We're
Mhm.
beyond 3 dimensions. That's how we can do things like remote viewing. And I was trained as a remote viewer, not by the military or DoD. I did this, in the civilian world. But
Mhm.
I was able to use coordinate remote viewing, the same methodologies that the Defense Intelligence Agency used, the U.S. Army Intelligence and Security Command used,
Mhm.
and you're able to perceive things at a distance. That's why it's called remote viewing. So that to me is proof positive, and you can go and read the declassified reports from the Stanford Research Institute that human beings are multidimensional creatures. Our brain is not just this squishy thing inside of our skull. There's
Mhm.
another multidimensional element to our brain. So, I believe that through training, through luck, or through chance, at times we're able to kind of see into that multidimensional reality that usually is clouded to us, that
Mhm.
we can't see, is the veil is across our eyes. And exactly, I think what you're talking about is maybe seeing a three-dimensional representation of a multidimensional object, entity, being. And we don't need to necessarily think about things being alive or dead in the way we do in this
Mhm.
other dimensional universe. Is we're seeing a dimensional a reduction of it. So one time when you perceive it, it might be a cube, and that's that is one part of it. Like that, my thumb is part of my hand, but all you see is my thumb. Now you
Mhm.
see my pinky, but it's still part of my hand. Now you see my whole hand. That it might be different elements of the same thing. A cube, a slinking creature, a
Mhm.
UFO, a Bigfoot, a ghost might all be different representations at that moment of a larger reality that exists in another dimension. And that's why I think we're starting to acknowledge bleed over in the
Mhm.
different genres of high strangeness, that we can't go around with blinders and say, okay, I'm just going to look at Bigfoot, or I'm just going to look at UFOs. We have to really expand what we're looking at, and start to accept that maybe things are a lot broader, and quite frankly a whole lot stranger than we ever thought.
Exactly. Exactly. I've been wanting to talk about this very subject for a very long time, and have tried to find some guests to get me into
No.
this place where we're at right now, and I really do appreciate it, because I do believe that there's a lot of bleed over, and I think our perception of reality is so narrow to what it actually is,
Yeah, yeah, it
and
is.
that's
And
because we rely on our five senses, right? But there's so much more there.
oh, there is. And what it's like is, I'll give you an example. I'm a ham radio operator. If I've got my frequency gated, okay, and I'm only listening to like you know, five kilohertz, in very narrow band, that's all I can hear. But if I
Mhm.
open up the gate on my receiver, I can start to receive a whole lot more now. Now it's very confusing, but I'm
Mhm.
getting a lot of data, from other sources, other radio signals. Human beings are the same way. We're gated in our very narrow understanding of the universe. And
Mhm.
if through training, luck, heredity, genetics, or whatever, if we can open up that gate, we can receive a whole lot more. And that's kind of what I think happens sometimes, is when people are able to open up, this receiving, whatever it is, the NHI is going to say, "Oh, wait, there's somebody that can actually hear me now."
Mhm.
And it might interact with you at home, or at the meadow, or in the Northwest, wherever, because distance to it doesn't matter in their reality.
Nope.
Everywhere is everywhere all at once. In the
Mhm.
quantum state, one thing we learned in remote viewing is everything that was, is, or will be exists now in a quantum state. And all you have to do is reach in there and pluck out that data.
That's correct.
So,
Time does not matter.
no, it doesn't. And even, the Bible talks about, I am the Alpha, I am the Omega, which is the beginning and the end all at once at the same time. So,
Mhm.
once you start looking at things maybe through that optic, it starts to make a lot more sense. And what we're discovering using some of the quantum analysis, image analysis, is we're finding that there are entities around us at all times.
Mhm.
So one of the things I say now is, not only are we not alone, we're never alone.
That's right.
They're around us at all times. And you can be horrified by that, or you can be comforted by that.
Mhm.
That's up to the listener.
Right. Yeah, I do agree. I do agree. I mean, there's little things that happen around me right here in my apartment, that I don't have an explanation for other than there are things in my apartment with me that I just can't see. I don't have the frequency of vision to see
Right.
them, but I know they're there.
Oh yeah, they're there.
Exactly. And if you were able to see that that stuff, I think it would terrify people.
Well, and I think that's part of, the whole thing that we're going through now, the disclosure project or the disclosure,
Mhm.
effort, is I think that's one thing that the gatekeepers on that information, and I think that they're kind of, I think they know that, that they're not UAPs, UFOs are, space brothers from Zeta Reticuli jumping in their intergalactic Cadillac and, driving over here. That's not what this is. This is interdimensional.
Yeah.
And that can be scary as shit to some people. I mean, really, really horrifying stuff that, quite frankly, you're never alone. They're always here. They're, within us, around us, everywhere.
Right.
And I think, they're trying to balance out, how do I tell people that? Number
Yeah.
one, keep people from going off the deep end. And number two, try to keep some semblance of social order, when that information comes out. I'm cool with it. I know this stuff. It doesn't bother me. But, I don't know how the rest of the world reacts. So I think they're trying to balance that out.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think if people knew what actually was going on and what actually was around, there would be mayhem.
Yeah.
People would, yeah, not do well with that information. Not at all. I mean, you even look back in time at, people seeing fairies and gnomes and all these different types of creatures. Those things could be around us all the time. And every
Yep.
once in a while, we get a glimpse of that sort of thing.
I
Um,
mean, yeah, that's one of the whole things that Joshua Cutchins talks about, in his books, where the footprints end is, the folklore of this stuff. What if it's not folklore? What if it's actually based in fact?
exactly. Exactly. I've heard many stories of this sort of thing. And, it's like when the sidewalk ends, but it really doesn't end. There's just more pathways
Right.
and they're all intersecting in these certain locations. Um, and especially around these high energy locations. Let me ask you this.
Mhm.
That area, the meadow that you are researching, is there any volcanic activity there at all?
No, no. This
Mhm.
is I'll tell people this is in the America Southland. It's
Mhm.
it's south of the Mason Dixon, east of Arizona. So it's in that part of the country. And the mountain ranges that that are in that part of the country are very, very old and way past, the time of being volcanic.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, I know here, in Washington State, we've got a lot
Oh,
of active things
oh
going
yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Um, and it seems like these locations where there is a lot of that sort of activity and with the granite and
Mhm.
the water and the crystals and the gold and these locations with these high mineral contents that come together, they seem to be um, an oasis, almost an oasis for these things, these realities to blend together. And I would suggest that other people out there find those locations for yourself
Yeah.
if you're interested in this sort of phenomenon, because pretty it's pretty likely that you'll capture something or that you experience something different. Do you feel something when you're in that location, something that you can't quite touch on?
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes we do. Sometimes we go out there and it's very calm. It's
Mhm.
just the place is beautiful. I mean, it's imagine just a beautiful green mountain meadow, just very pretty with a beautiful large creek next to it. And so sometimes you go out there and it's like, wow, this is just a gorgeous place, just beautiful. Then other times you go out there and you step foot into it and it's like your stomach knots up and you're like,
Mm.
I don't want to go in here, but I've got a mission to accomplish, and you just have to kind of make yourself and go. And I've been out there as we are going deeper into the meadow, as our teams are advancing. I've gotten to a point where personally I've gotten there and I'm like, yeah, I'm not scared, but it's just I just don't feel like it's wise to go any further. Now, there's a lot of theories on that. There's the infrasound theory, and there's a whole bunch of stuff with that. That's not always the way infrasound works, but some people have talked about other phenomena being zapped by some sort of entity or Sasquatch or whatever, and it having this overwhelming sense of fear.
Yeah.
So yeah, it the environment changes, the ambiance certainly changes from time to time.
And it happens different with every person too. It's not the same throughout.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
everybody's experiencing different things during that time. And
Yeah.
that's I guess each person is at a different level, right? What they're able to accept. And not only that, but what they're experiencing is different. What they see may be different too, which is what you're telling
Yeah,
me.
that is very, very astute. Yes. Sometimes we'll have something go on, and not just at the meadow, but I mean, other places. Somebody said, well, I saw a glowing orb, hanging there. And somebody, well, I just saw like a little twinkle of light.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody will say, I saw like a little something, or I saw a big thing, So, it's, once again, we go back to that observer effect. The observer is affecting what they perceive. And I think a lot of it depends on, like I talked about, gating your frequency, how wide the reception is on different individuals. We've had people, I heard a voice, say, so-and-so, did you hear that? It's like, no, I didn't hear anything.
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear that tree knock? No, I didn't hear it, but I heard a laugh, or I heard disembodied voices. And that's another thing. Some of the stuff we can't record.
Right.
Is the twinkling lights we have out there. We call them fairy lights. They're like little tiny orbs. I've captured in 9 years. I've captured one, but they happen all the time. Disembodied voices are very common out there.
Yeah.
Haven't captured that yet. Shadow people, we've captured it once on film. So it's it's challenging. Certainly is challenging.
Yeah, and one thing to remember too, and for the audience as well, is our brains are all wired differently. We're not the exact same.
Right.
We all have different minute capabilities that are just we're tuned a little bit different from each other. And so we're going to perceive things a little bit different. I even remember back when I was married, I said, well, this paint swath is blue. And my ex-wife was like, no, that's purple.
Right.
I mean, just for instance, but that's the way we view the world, just a little bit different from each other. So the fact that you're seeing something and somebody else is reporting something else, I think that's common. Whether or not we can capture that on a recording device of some sort, that's when it really brings it home, right?
Right. And what we have to keep in mind, and kind of going back to what we started on, is the experiential nature of it. Is everybody's experience, human experience, is just as valid as everybody else's. Everybody's truth is their truth. Now, their truth is a lowercase t,
right?
And it might not be totally representative of the uppercase T, the big truth, but everybody has their own truth, and we have to make sure we respect that. So that's that's something I've kind of learned in this this business is be very respectful of other people's experiences, because your experiences might sound just as crazy to them as maybe theirs does to you.
Right. Well, anyway, where can people view the film?
Yeah, what you can do is you can go to merkelfilms.com, and you'll see a place that says films, and you'll click on it, and you'll see the Meadow Project. And you can click on that, buy it. Highly recommend you go ahead and get the bundle so you can see the helm and lens, which is our experiments with the God helmet, and quantum analysis, which we didn't really get to go into too deep. I have 2 books out, The Meadow Project and Return to the Meadow. for the full Meadow experience, I really recommend read the book and see the film. You'll get the whole gestalt, the big picture of it. You can find me at TREYHudsonResearch.com, or you can go on Facebook at Trey Hudson-author, or you can go behind the alleyway in the liquor store and look for me under a cardboard box. No,
I don't think we're going to find you there.
No.
You definitely not find you there, sir. But I do appreciate you coming on the show. And just to let everybody know, I will be on with Dave Scott in the 11 o'clock hour. So hang out for that. He's the master. I'm just an underling.
Keep Dave out of trouble, because
that's right.
He's a rascal.
Yeah, he is.
Tell him I said so.
All right, I will. Thank you, sir, very much for coming on tonight.
Thank
if
you.
You would just hang out back for me real quick. Well, that was an awesome show, guys. That was really freaking cool. And I can't wait to find out more about the experiments that he did out in the field, just so that I can get some ideas for my own location. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and hit the outro, and we'll check in.